We're going to go back into the future. We're going to go as far back, December 9th, 1965. There's a small town in Pennsylvania. That town is Kecksburg. Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. On this particular day, it was about 4:30 in the afternoon, something very unusual was happening in the sky. Witnesses say it was just like a massive fireball, just at a high rate of speed, just blowing across the sky. Now this thing traveled through 5 states, 5 different states, and it was, I guess as it was traveling at a high rate of speed, metal fragments was falling from this thing. It was going through Pittsburgh. Going through Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, there was fragments falling all over the place. It finally had crash landed in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania, in a small wooded area, and witnesses claimed that before this thing crashed, that it actually had slowed down and made 2 different turns before it made a crash landing. Almost like it was being controlled by radio. Well, not long after this thing had crash landed, there was probably a dozen, maybe a handful of people ran into the woods to see what this thing was. It was acorn shaped, didn't appear to have any doors on it, didn't have any hinges, nothing like that, but on the very bottom of it there was like Arabic language that was all along the bottom part of this craft. Well, not long after this, the United States Army shows up. They barricade this thing off, okay, so that nobody could gain access to seeing this thing. It was the United States Army and the Pennsylvania State Police that was keeping people from coming in. A reporter out of Greensburg caught wind of this, and he grabbed his gear, he went to Kecksburg, and he started interviewing people, asking them, what did you see? What, you know, people were just explaining, listen, we just saw a massive fireball and it crash landed. So he decides, I guess, he's going to take a walk in to see what this thing is. So he goes into the woods. He starts approaching the area where this craft is laying in the ground. It almost like when it came to a landing, it slid. It slid into the ground until it came to a stop. Well, the military seen his gear and knew that he was from the press and confiscated his tapes. But they did not confiscate the tapes that were in his pocket. So now they bring in, the Army brings in a flatbed truck. They put this object on the back of a flatbed truck. They cover it with tarps, and they're hauling this thing out of the woods. To my understanding, it went from Kecksburg, Pennsylvania to a military base somewhere in Ohio. Now, there was a lot of people that had seen this object. There was a lot of people that claimed that they actually saw people going into the woods, like government officials, and there was like aliens and crap, you know, I don't know. But so right away this town's thinking, oh my goodness, a UFO. A UFO has crash landed right here in our little town of Kecksburg. Well, I'll give you, well, let me keep going with the story. So now here it is, a day or two after this thing had happened. Okay, military officials, government officials are going to people's doors, people that had witnessed this thing, people that had spoken to the press, and basically, in my opinion, was threatening them, telling them, you didn't see anything. The reason I say this is because now these people don't want to talk about it. These people saw what they saw, but yet, after speaking to these government officials, they're not saying a word. So I personally believe that their lives were being threatened. Now I'm going somewhere with this now, y'all. Okay, so now this reporter out of Greensburg, two gentlemen show up at the radio station that he worked out of in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, and take him into a room, and this meeting lasted about 30 minutes. Now, understand this reporter, his last name was Murphy, was really excited about this story. This was huge. This was a big story. After speaking to these two government officials, he was a different person. He no longer wanted to discuss it. He didn't want to, he kind of lost interest in it. He didn't want anything to do with it. I personally think that these people were being threatened by the government. This is what's going to happen if you continue discussing it, getting whatever information you have. If you're putting it out there, this is what's going to happen. He lost total interest now. He didn't want to even talk about it, which is kind of odd. Now, this is my opinion, y'all. One, this was not a UFO. Two, I personally believe that the government was behind it, that there was something that didn't go right for the U.S. government, and now they're threatening people, telling them you need to shut your mouth and quit talking about it. So here we are now. We are here 2017. I was doing a little research on this story, and I think it was 2015 is where they believe now what this object was. They believe that it was a Russian satellite that never made it into orbit. Okay? And well, it just, hey, those things happen, I guess. This thing was headed back to Earth, and this thing was supposedly on a mission towards Venus. And that's, I kind of believe that story more. One, because if it's a UFO, I think that it would look a little bit different in the sky. I don't know. It just seemed like it would be a lot different. Possibly, if they even exist, you would see aliens. So that's what we call them, as aliens. But in this situation, right away the government had showed up, which is telling me they were behind this. They knew that this thing was going to crash. And if it is true that this thing supposedly slowed down and made two different turns before it crashed, I guess it's possible that it was controlled, so that it did not crash into a crash into an area where there was a bunch of people and homes. So I personally don't believe this thing was a UFO. Now, coming up this weekend, here we are, it's Thursday, the Kecksburg, little town of Kecksburg, they have I don't know, it's like a UFO festival. In my opinion, are they still celebrating the fact that this thing was a UFO? I'm going to go there, and I'm going to take the camera with me, and I want to hopefully speak to some people that were there. Get their story. Hopefully they have a better story than what I'm telling you. They would know, they were there. So we're going to take a drive. We're going to go to Kecksburg, Pennsylvania, and hopefully we'll get some decent footage here and get some interviews with some people. So I'll see you when we get there. Okay, so we're here at Kecksburg, Pennsylvania, and this is the object, the acorn-shaped object that supposedly, not supposedly, it actually did touch down, crashed in a wooded area. it's acorn shaped. A lot of people here in Kecksburg, they believe that it is a UFO, that there was actually aliens that came out of this thing. Now if you look at this thing, you can clearly see that it's a solid object. They have it painted this color because it was like a copper, I guess it was like copper. There isn't any doors, there's no hinges, there's nothing to this. So I don't know, y'all, but make your call on this one. I find it interesting. It's rather interesting. I think that it's something that's tied in with the government, and it just got away from them.
Hey, look, did you read it? It's got the schedule too. I really like it. Yeah.
How you doing? From here?
Yeah, I'm from Irwin. Okay, so I'm currently here with Stan Gordon, and Stan, you have a lot of information here. You've been doing this for, you say, 50-some years?
Well, I've been involved in research since 1959 when I was 10 years old. So I've been out in the field since 1965 after the Kecksburg incident, and I've worked on thousands of UFO cases, hundreds of Bigfoot reports and other weird cases, and reports come in on a continuous basis. Actually, my hotline's been open since 1969. And but I started working on the Kecksburg case that evening as it's breaking on the news all over Pittsburgh that this brilliant fireball was seen from Ontario, Canada, over Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. And that object apparently came in over the greater Pittsburgh area about 4:37 p.m., seen by multitudes of witnesses throughout this area, and it came in over the greater Greensburg area. Then it made a turn to the south, and it was seen by people all along that path from Marguerite down through Norvelt, went out in the mountains of Laurelville, kind of hesitated, turned back, began to track back towards Kecksburg, made another turn and went down into the Widow Ravine. And the people who locally saw it go down said it didn't come down at a high rate of speed, it came down almost like it was controlled, and those people who saw it go down said there was no reports of any parachutes at that site. What I later found out was that some of the local people, then later volunteer firemen, then military, came into the area and they came across the object that was embedded in the ground. But some of the local people who went down right after it fell came across this large metallic acorn-shaped object, about 10 to 12 feet or more in length, about 8 to 10 feet in diameter, kind of an off-gold bronze color, semi-buried in the ground. And it's shaped like a big off-gold color acorn. But interestingly, there was no weld marks, no seams, no fuselage, and at the raised up back part like you'd have on an acorn with these raised up markings that look more like symbols than lettering. And of course the interesting thing was that in the afternoon, later in the evening, more and more military were arriving in the area. The area was cordoned off, and what we later learned is that around 1 o'clock in the morning, a large military flatbed tractor trailer carrying a large object with a tarp over it had left here, went to Lockport Air Force Base in Columbus, Ohio, stayed there for a short time under heavy security, then went on to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and it was placed there in a warehouse building. Now where it's at today, we have no idea.
Okay, that's interesting. So, you know, was you here when government officials were coming back days after this took place, telling residents to not say anything? Are you aware of any of that information?
Well, I can't say the next few days. And one thing we found out was interesting that, you know, this happened Thursday evening. The next day it's in all the local and national news about the incident, and the official explanation already is that people just saw a bright meteor in the sky, but nothing fell. Yet we now know that many people saw the object in the air, on the ground, and later on the military flatbed trailer. So we know they took something out of here. The question is still, what was it? What I also found out was, and this is from different sources, that the next day, Friday morning, and during that day, there's still other personnel, not as many as the night before, but there are other people down in the woods again, apparently doing some type of recovery or search operation. And there were hundreds of people involved in this case. We have no idea how many. But we did hear stories over the years from different people around here that some people apparently did interact with some federal people, and some people allegedly had some meetings apparently with some individuals. And so there's a lot of stories we heard, but there were so many people involved that a lot of people didn't know, even myself. Many years it took for me to track down a lot of the individuals. And I know there's many people out there today who still have never come forward.
So being 2017, do we have any updated information on what had really taken place on that day?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of information because so many of the witnesses I interviewed over years never went public. So it was interesting over so many years that so many people gave me detailed information and little details that many other people were confirming without them knowing it. And even the last few years, I found some other people who were involved and never came forward. We got some pretty good leads in some cases, but over the years I interviewed reporters who were on the scene, state troopers, many other people who were there that night, later some military sources. So we learned a lot about the case, and we know a lot. The big question still is, what was so secretive and so important that the military arrived in the small farming community as quickly as they did, and why after 52 years must they still tell the public the truth about what they recovered?
So it was you that was here, and there was another gentleman that was by the name of Murphy?
Okay, I was not here. I was a young teenager that night listening to the radio in Pittsburgh, and it was breaking on the news about this brilliant object that was seen by many people. So I was beginning to document it. I was just going on that time, and I began to document it for months and weeks and years, and continuing for many years to try to find out what really happened out here.
So I understand that you actually had some experience yourself. You had seen something when you were a kid?
I did not.
Okay.
And interesting to most people, in all the years I've been doing this, and I've worked on thousands of UFO cases, hundreds of Bigfoot cases, other phenomena, I have never personally seen a UFO or Bigfoot myself. I've seen a lot of evidence, but I've never had my own account of it.
Okay. All right, Stan. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. There you got it, y'all. You heard it straight from Stan Gordon. Stan Gordon's been doing this since 1959. He researches thousands of cases out of just Pennsylvania here. I'm sure he travels other areas as well, but he takes footage from people that maybe recorded something that they've seen, pictures, and does an investigation on it. But the crazy thing about it was, here is a man that has given his heart and soul to this sort of thing. He's been doing it since 1959, and he has researched thousands of cases, but yet the man has never seen a UFO. He's never actually seen one himself. So thought that was pretty interesting. You know, what do you think? Have you heard of this Kecksburg, Pennsylvania? Have you heard of this incident that had taken place in '65? Let me know. Leave me a comment. If you like the video, give me a like. And you know what I'm always saying, man, keep it real, and love the ones that you're with. I'll talk at you later. Bye.